Hello, all you beautiful people. What's going on this morning? Hope you guys are having a great start to your day. That is really the key, I believe, for me in getting from that place of peace to the pit, right? I mean, it's the other way around, isn't it? We want to get from that place of pit to the place of peace. But here's the deal, so many people get peace and then they go back to the pit, right? Why? Why is it we continue to do the same behavior over and over again and expect different results? I think Paul referred to that in the Bible, that I continually do things I don't want to do and I don't do things I do want to do. And why is it that sometimes we change, but we don't keep the change? So I want to talk a little bit about that. Is that cool? We'll spend a few minutes on that today. Hey, you might not know this, you might know it. I wrote the book, Keep the Change. It is the 12 Steps of Recovery as designed and created by Bill and Bob in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I put those 12 steps into a personal development story that tell the story of my authentic journey from being just having a master's in stupidity and a doctor in dumbness, and fortunately coming to the other side of that and having some freedom. But I will tell you many times, what I'm just so grateful for is that I got sober when I was 28 years old. I was 150 pounds. As a matter of fact, I just had a daughter about 9 months earlier, so I know that was a trigger for me subconsciously to go do something about this. But I had a good job. I was a finance manager at a car dealership. I was making good money. But man, I was a drug addict. Today, by the way, I weigh about 220, not necessarily on choice, but that's what I weigh now. And back then it was 150. I was doing 3 to 4, maybe 5 grand of cocaine a month, amongst other drugs. And what happened with me though is I had to I had to hate the addiction. So my daughter's born, and one day I'm walking down the street. Well, probably not, but I ran into a friend of mine by the name of Bobby Joe. Now, Bobby Joe had been a friend of mine and a party buddy for years. And when I saw him, I thought, dude, that guy looks good. He doesn't look like he's partying. And I remember saying to him, I said, "What's up, man? What happened to you?" And he said, "I went to rehab." And I said, "What's rehab?" See, I was so caught up in my dis-ease, except get high, go to work. Not even taking care of my family. It was get high, go to work in that order. And then at work, I would get high. And because I had my job. But the reality was, in that moment when I saw him, there was like, I didn't know what rehab was. I wasn't even at that place where I wanted awareness to say, "Hey, I'm in denial. I need help." No way. I wasn't there. So in this particular moment, I asked him about it. He told me it was called the Adrian Center. It's not there anymore. It was in Santa Cruz, California. That's still there. And he said, I went there and I went for 30 days. And I said, "Hey, cool, good for you." And I left the conversation a few minutes later. Guess what I did the next day? Something triggered me. "Man, you need help." So I called up them, the Adrian Center, and I sat in front of them, and they said, "You can't, you're going to have to give us 30 days. You can have a bed, but we need you for 30 days straight." And I said, "I can't do that. I'm kind of a big deal." I wasn't a big deal at all. And they said, "Yep, that's what you're going to have to do. If you want to get better, you're going to have to do that." And I said, No. And I left. And I remember getting in the car crying because I wanted help. So that trigger of seeing Bobby Joe made me realize, dude, I want to be like that. I don't want to be the way I am anymore. 6 months later, I was at work. You might know the story. It's actually in the book. It was late at night. I was a finance manager at the car dealership. I had paperwork everywhere, scattered around. I had a 12 pack over to my right and a gram of cocaine in my pocket. And I snuck in the bathroom thinking everybody was gone to do a line of cocaine. And my boss came in behind me. I tried to hide it, but I know he knew he saw me. The next day, I walked into work and he said, "Come here." And he sat down in front of me and he said, "Bart, I'm going to have to let you go." And I remember hearing that and I was so relieved. I loosened my tie and I literally inhaled and exhaled in this huge sigh because now I could get help. Remember that treatment center? So I actually literally, after I left him, I went to the bar. The next morning, I got up and I had a beer. And then that's not the whole story though. The first thing that happened to me was I got on my knees and I cried. And I prayed to a God that I didn't even know for help. and I got an intuition to call that treatment center, and they had one bed left. So I made sure I had my last year before I went in that treatment center. Talk about sick. And I went in that treatment center, and 2 weeks into that treatment center, after hours and hours of therapy, Gus, the counselor, came up to me and he said, Bart, you're not going to stay sober. You're narcissistic. You haven't lost your house. You haven't lost your cars. You're going to have a job when you get back. You know, you're not going to make it. And I was so mad, I want to punch him in the nose. Get this. The next day, I ended up going in to see him because I had another meeting with him. But before I went in, I was in the bathroom. I had a shirt on and I felt something in the pocket of my shirt. And I pulled it out and it was a stash of cocaine I put there months earlier. I'd hid it in there in this particular shirt. I opened it, looked at it while I was in that treatment center, and then flushed it down the toilet. And that was the beginning of the end. That was it for me. I was done. I made that decision in that moment. No more. I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him. I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing him. Now, did I think all that? No. But in that moment, what I said was, take that, Gus. And then 2 weeks later, I graduated from that treatment center. And today, by the grace of God, this is a rare story. I have 38 plus years of sobriety. It was June 15th, 1985, from drugs and alcohol. Unfortunately, I flipped addictions. We'll talk about that some other time, and that's in the book. But my point is, that's what had to happen with me. I was so blessed that I had that 30 days, the detox. I was also, believe it or not, blessed that a friend of mine, and I mean this he was a friend, and I don't mean it disrespectfully at all, but he OD'd the day after he walked out of that treatment center. Roommate. And as soon as he walked out, he OD'd. He didn't die that day, but I was grateful that I got to see that happen because it just scared me straight. I was so scared to even use again because I didn't want to go back to the person I was before. Does that make sense? And for me, I admit it, I'm a personal coach. I'm a mental health coach. I do leadership training. I sometimes get in fear. And that's one fear that I was so grateful for that I made sure that I never went back to there again, one day at a time, as I'm knocking on wood. And fortunately, with my sexual integrity issues, I've got freedom from that too. So, hey, that's a long way to say there's different ways to get here, but there's different ways to break addiction. So stay with me on these lives and on the videos, because I want to tell you how you overcome addiction. There is a way. You just have to make the decision. You have to be willing to do it. And you've got to hate what you're doing, that addiction. You got to hate it. If you don't hate it, you're not going to do it. Right? I mean, you got to hate it. Just like for something you really want to do, you got to love it and really want it to do it. Because when it gets hard, you'll stick in there. Same thing with addiction. You got to hate it, hate it, hate it. When it gets hard, you're going to stick in there. Just saying, that's it. That's one of those things that have to happen first and foremost. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me. Look forward to talking to you guys next time.